Okay, and we are broadcasting.
Okay. Need one more counselor for a quorum. I know the mayor's out of town, so she's not coming.
And I did, Counselor, send the email links to all the panelists just in case.
Thank you. Are we going to have anyone from Sasaki?
Yeah, Kate was expected to be here this evening.
Good.
I'll look
Okay.
out for her.
Yeah. Oh, good. Counselor Connell's. So we have kind of sparse attendance. We do have a quorum. Let's see.
I'm Jared.
Hello.
Richard and I are here. We're at City Hall because I have budget and finance in an hour, so I'm just gonna do it from here to be on time.
Okay.
Just FYI.
All right. Elizabeth Harris said she would be on in a minute. Well, Andy, I think maybe you might ping Kate at Sasaki, and then we'd start.
Yeah, sorry, I don't see either one of them here. I'm happy to give an update,
Yeah.
though.
Okay. Let me.
Counselor, did you want me to show the order?
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great. All right, I think in the interest of everyone's time, because there's another meeting at 6:30, we'll go ahead and get started. So Councillor Shand said she would be absent. But all the other councilors are here. Councillor Connell, I see, Councillor McCauley, and Councillor Zeid, who's sharing a computer with Richard Jones. We also have ex officio member Kim Turner from the Parks Commission, Andy Port, and Richard Jones, as I said. We got one member of the audience, so we'll give a chance for them to speak. So the issue here is, just to refresh everyone's memory, is that Sasaki very helpfully broke down the cost, and the City Council, on the recommendation of this committee, did approve design funds for everything else about the park except the restrooms and visitor center. So the order that you see on the screen would appropriate the money for design just of that aspect of the park, which admittedly is pricey. It's about $188,000. And then it would authorize Sasaki to go ahead and proceed with the design. I frankly don't remember if these percentages is where we ended up on the other order, but we can talk about that. So I guess there were sort of two things I'm going to promote Elizabeth Harris. I wanted to touch on. One is, do we have the stomach to go ahead with the design of the restrooms and the visitor center as in the conceptual form that they were in. There wasn't a whole lot of detail, but the basic footprint size. And then the other question is, are we okay with the cost? So we don't have Sasaki on. I apologize. I'm not sure why they're late, but maybe if members of the committee, either voting or non-voting, if you just want to raise your hand electronically and we can talk about it. Councilor McCauley, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'm glad that we separated it out. I know there was some heartburn on the restrooms. I believe that Sasaki had taken testimony from us and others about maybe different placement or sizing or whatnot. I was hoping that we could get an update if they think that they have enough feedback to be able to take a step forward in doing that. The price is a little bit out of sync with the rest of the park, but it's not out of sync with any of the buildings that we've worked on. At 25%, I don't think that they can go too off the rails without some coming back for further guidance to see where they are. And really, I was only looking for some input from Sasaki again, that if they had enough feedback and testimony from us, that they could make the anticipated changes. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor.
Councilors, this is Andy Port. Could I respond back? Because I could probably answer one of the questions if you'd like.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
And I apologize. I'm not sure if there was a lost communication with Sasaki, but I'll check in. But at any rate, we did actually have a discussion, to Councilor McCauley's point. I would agree with everything he's just outlined. We did have a conversation about the design issue in particular with the lead architect who's taking over that aspect of the project if these funds are brought forward. And they definitely have a better understanding of what the concern there is. So between the contemporary piece that you saw, I think, if I can use that word, and the different architecture that we have here in Newburyport, trying to come up with something that they could come back to this ad hoc committee, and the ad hoc committee would feel more comfortable collectively, as would other constituents.
Okay, Councilor Connell.
Yeah, thank you. I think that the inclusion of a restroom, a comfort station on the property, perhaps where it was located or perhaps oriented in a different way, but close to the street is a good idea. I think it's one of the things that we hear consistently about the waterfront park area, and that is that there are not enough restrooms readily available. People can go into the firehouse center and downstairs there, but most of them don't avail themselves of that opportunity. So they knock on the doors of restaurants, things like that in the neighborhood. That said, I think that frankly, the design fee is excessive. And I wish that Sasaki were here to explain how they arrived at that number with some detail. Just for comparison purposes, a close friend of mine has been for the last 6 or 8 months engaged in the design of a single family home on property that they purchased in New Hampshire. And the total cost of the design is less than this. And this is just essentially a comfort station. It causes me to scratch my head at the very least. Yeah, do I support the idea? Certainly. The location, I can be a little flexible on. The price tag is a non-starter as far as I'm concerned. We got to value engineer this down into a manageable number.
Thank you. Richard Jones or Councilor Zede?
I was just going to speak. This is Sharif here. So a couple of things. First one is, I think before we let Sasaki loose, really the two debates I think we have to have are the material of the building and the orientation of the building. And I think that whether we do it now or we do it next year, that's basically what we need to give Sasaki. We already have some information. We have a schematic design, if you will. We have a floor plan, which I think personally is acceptable. It's some bathrooms, And then essentially a very small sort of informational area, if you'll recall that from some of the slides that we received from Sasaki in the past. Maybe Andy has them and could share them. And then on the exterior, we have materials, and we touched upon it very briefly in a previous conversation, but it was brick. Some people seem to not like that, others seem to like it. And then orientation refers to whether it's parallel or broadside to Merrimack Street, or it's perpendicular, more akin to what the current building is. To me, those are the two items that really need to be resolved. And if we're not ready to tackle that, then we can just push this off to maybe the next session. As far as the price goes, maybe Andy could pull up this slide too, but I think you have to look at it relative to the cost of of what they think that building is going to cost to construct, to determine whether it's really out of band. I'm not so sure that it is as a percentage of the estimate, and they did provide us with estimates on that. So the last thing is, why do this at all now? I mean, really the answer is to keep Sasaki engaged because we have them, and so as not to lose them, and to have the continuity between the park design and the building design, whether we choose to phase the project later or not. This is one of those instances where I at least think that there's merit to the conversation to having this proceed, especially since we have the funds in the downtown paid parking fund, and that way we will sort of have a completed design. So those are my three things. One is the material and the orientation against the pricing, and then why consider doing it now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and
well-
I'm sorry to speak as well.
Well, I just had a couple follow-up comments, if I might. To me, the orientation is important. To me, the orientation should be perpendicular to Merrimack Street, just to allow for a visual access to the water. That's what that area, has been, and what it means to so many people to be able to see, not at a building, but around a building or next to a building. The materials and the style, for me, are very important. I tend to be a little controlling on that, only because I've seen things that I don't want to look at over the years. And I mean, that dovetails into the debate whether it should be new and unlike, or it should be imitated. I think it should be not new and unlike. I think it should echo the architectural features that we have downtown. I didn't see that in the initial design. On pricing, it strikes me, as Council Connell said, a little high, but I don't know. I can't comment. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wanted to comment? Well, why don't I take public comment, and then we'll decide where to go from here. So does anyone in the attendees wish to speak? You don't have to, of course, but if you do, just raise your hand. All right, no takers. What I'm thinking, first of all, I don't understand why Sasaki's not on, but that is what it is. I don't think we're ready to release this much money. The city council or the committee is what I'm hearing. I think maybe there's some preliminary work that Sasaki sub can do. For example, we've heard from a couple people over the fall, including Rich Jones just now, that you want to make sure that the views from Merrimack Street towards the river are not impaired. And, that can be done with some photo simulations or elevation drawings, perspective drawings. And that would really help us sort of pin that down. And then also maybe some alternatives. I mean, to go back to I think it was the September presentation that Sasaki did. They did have some elevations, Andy. I can put it up, but yeah, there you go. So, this I think is not ready for prime time yet, but the next one where they gave the next slide where they, that I actually like that personally for what it's worth. So I think before we sort of release all 190,000, even if that is the right amount of money, maybe there's a lesser amount of money that we could to sort of pin down footprint, and is it either contemporary or is it, harkens back to the downtown? Those are my thoughts. Councillor Connell.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we might ask Andy Port to chime in. I don't know if he has had conversations with Sasaki about this. If there's any information he can provide that, that
Sure.
we might benefit from.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, councilors. So I have spoken with Sasaki about this. They did get definitely some, to Councilor McCauley's earlier point, some good feedback so that they have a better idea of what to bring forward the next time around to this committee. But understood the concerns you have this evening. The costs, obviously proportionally, I think as Councilor McCauley alluded to, is the fact that this is a building, so a little more complicated in some ways, even if it's a simple building. At any rate, we could, although I don't have a number before me, ask them for a number for a subdivision, if you will, of this this cost to get to, say, a 25% schematic design that is acceptable, and then phase out from there if that is of such concern. From my perspective as project manager, I know that the ad hoc committee is going to be involved in the process of reviewing the architecture. So it's not for me a concern, because I know that there's a review that will happen in a public forum as a continuation of this. But if there is a concern about that, we certainly could get a number if that is the preference and recognition of the timeframes involved. My thought would be that if you'd like to go that route, would be to perhaps authorize the chair working with the planning director to bring forward such a number to the council at the next and only remaining council meeting for that purpose. But again, from my perspective, knowing this project and how important it is, the number is not necessarily unreasonable, and certainly it's a place to fill in the project designs, mainly because from my perspective, if we are going to leverage any federal or state funds that might be trickling down for infrastructure, so-called infrastructure projects and economic development, it would be good to have those plans, quote, shovel ready.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of the shovel ready either. If that's okay with it, here's the thing. I'd like to ask the committee to vote to get this out. You don't have to have a recommendation, because if nothing else, if I can get it to the floor on Monday, then a majority of the council can carry it over to the next term. We can do it that way.
Yeah.
And then if we get better information from Sasaki, which I assume we will by Monday, as Director Port says, maybe we can either justify the 187,825 and get the council comfortable. I'm sorry we couldn't do it tonight because we don't have Sasaki, or this lesser amount. I wanted one last thing. I just want to agree with Director Port. I'm not so much worried about the design, because that's going to the physical appearance of the building, because that's going to be iterative and it's going to come back to a committee, and councilors and stakeholders will have lots of chance. I'm really more interested in this footprint question, whether it's going to block views. I think that's kind of a threshold question. That's where I was coming from. All right. Well, I don't want to keep people longer than is necessary. If there are no other comments or discussion, I just need a motion to authorize bringing this out to the council without recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, then I have to do a roll call. So Councillor Connell,
Yes.
Councillor Zeid.
No.
No. Okay. Councillor McCauley.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm a yes. So that's 3-1. All right. Is there any other business? I mean, I won't be on anymore if the next president wants to reform this ad hoc. So I just want to thank everyone. I really think I think this was really gratifying, the work of this group. So with that, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Yep.
Councillor Connell,
Yes.
Councillor Zeid,
Yes.
Councillor McCauley,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Oh,
Good
thank
night.